Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Esports and Content Creators. We had some technical difficulties. We're back. We're good. Okay, everyone's here. So my name is Chillrogg. Thanks for watching, everybody. And joining me, as always, is Sidkitten, the Vice President of Chili Mountain. How's it going, Sidkitten? Nice to have you. Nice to have you back.
Hey guys, nice to be here.
And then today, we are very excited to have GabeJames. Gabe is the at-home designer for Roll20. Gabe created the CMM, an alternative character creation tool for 5e focused on class narrative. I don't know exactly what that means, but it sounds really important. We'll talk about it in a bit. Gabe is also the host of Roll20's podcast, Tabletop Tabletalk. He's also a cosplayer, voice actor, and Twitch streamer. Gabe does it all. Gabe, welcome to the show. Really awesome to have you. How's it going, Gabe?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, so it should be really good.
So we are so excited to have you here, Gabe. As soon as we finished doing our one shot, I was like, I need to know more about him. I'm like obsessed. You're hands down like the most interesting person I know right now. So
For now, we'll introduce you to more interesting people, I promise.
Perfect. Yes, please spice up my life. So we want to hear about your backstory. Where did your career start? Usually we think about like traditional careers like accounting and things like that like people usually aspire to. But how did you find your path and be where you are now?
A lot of falling and then realizing I was previously standing up because that was what where I was standing where other people wanted me to stand instead of standing where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. I started like making games when I was like in high school, like a generic backstory, blah, blah, blah. But like it was the conflict of like, I don't know if any of my game ideas are good enough or cool enough. Then eventually when I went to college, I went for a interactive media degree. So that was like game design, audio editing, digital and tabletop game design. And I took a class with a board game designer whose name is Luke Peterschmidt. And he ran a Kickstarter company where they made board games, kickstarted them, got the stuff out. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So like I did an internship with him. Yeah. And in my internship, he would like take me to PAX. He would take me to Gen Con, took me to Origins. And when I was just walking around the conventions, I was like, they're all just nerds like me. Like I thought there was going to be like these ethereal, like pompous people. And I'm like, nah, they're just happy nerds making stuff. So I started just writing and working and designing. And I did my first Kickstarter like when I was in college for a game that I called Source Code. And Source Code now I do not think is good. I tried to build as much as I could and I didn't have like a sense of scope, but I looked at it and like I have my little physical source code book and I love it because it's like, it's not great, but I made it. Like all of the doubts and all of the concerns, like I sat down and just made it. And at that point I was like, I made it because that was what I wanted to play at the time. That was what I wanted to see. And getting into that mindset, I'm like, I should just make more things that I want to see because there's a chance that other people want to see it too. Other people want to enjoy the same ideas. And so I just started making more and more and posting stuff online, like posting it on like Twitter or like Instagram ideas. And then eventually people were like, oh, that's interesting. And then it was the traction of people seeing my ideas and going more and more. And I'm like, oh my God, people like this nonsense stuff that I make.
So where do you get your inspiration?
Sometimes the first ideas that come to mind in the randomest moments. I was walking my dog one day and a random thought popped in my head. I'm like, wow, if my eyeball was a mimic, that'd be horrible. And it's the weirdest, random, most nonsense thought, but I wrote it down and then I just came back to it later. So literally like any of the strange creativity that you have, I genuinely say, hold on to it. Even if it's not something you pursue at that point, even if that's not the idea that you take, it might inspire you with something else. And also sometimes just things that other people say, because we all know at least 10 people that say some pretty ridiculous things, like weird as hell. But it might be like, That's a weird as hell thing for a normal person to say. But in a fantasy game, that actually might be pretty fitting. Add some magic to it, and it's like perfect.
Awesome. So we know you also do voice acting. So we talked a little bit about your game design,
Yes.
but wait, and you have an amazing like speaking voice just in general. Like it's a really good tone.
Thank you.
So like, where did you like start to find that like itching to do voice acting? Like when did you think about that, or how did that come about?
I've always liked cartoons. And then when I got to that, there's always that point in cartoons where you realize that the characters aren't real, but you're not upset about it because you realize there's someone behind that character then. And that was so cool to me. I'm like, I'm hearing these people change their voices in the craziest ways. And I was like,
so
I want to learn how to do that. And it got me to being like, you know what? Like all the excitement and all the weird things and like all the pretend and stuff, like I can embrace that and have fun and channel that into creating these characters and making these characters come to life. So I started like for years and years, I would just do that for myself. Like I practiced the speaking voice for a while.
That is awesome.
I was like, I want to do it.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite kind of character you like to do?
I think it's like kind of weird things like this. It's like halfway to Stitch a little bit. But I like to do them because when it gets lower at the suns, it gets worse.
It's like your worst nightmare voice. You walk around in a cave and this guy pops out of you.
It's like a gremlin. That's what I hear in my head. And I like the gremlin voice because that's the voice that like it's people when they hear me do it, there's one of two things that happen. They're either not shocked at all or they're terrified. And either way, both are great because it gives me a great gauge of how much more I should do it.
That's awesome. Do you do like just I guess more human voices with like accents, like a British accent or Australian? Like do you do accents or is that not really what you focus on?
So I do accents a little bit, and it just depends on where the kind of accent that I'm going for. I spent one of my best friends from high school was from Uganda, and so I spent a lot of time around his family. And it's not perfect, but I did start to pick up on the inflections of tones that they would do.
Yeah.
And so like I have friends that live in like Ireland and England and stuff, and it's the kind of stuff that like it probably wouldn't pass if it was those people. But for other Americans listening, it sounds great. And sometimes that's all we need. So I do like doing accent stuff. I've been like practicing more of Irish, talking back and forth to a friend of mine that lives in Ireland. So hopefully in like a month, I'll have that like down to a better point of where I want it to be.
Do you have like a dream gig you're going like? Do you want to be like on an Activision Blizzard like? Cinematic, or do you want to be in like a movie, or is there like a dream you aspire to for voice acting?
I've thought about that, and I don't actually want anything that's like super mainstream. Yeah, because like it's all plausible. I want to be that weird voice on a haunted ride that makes someone terrified, I want it to be someone that knows me, so they're like, Gabe, I have a weird question. In Haunted Hayride of New Jersey, there's a really weird animatronic clown. Like that's the moment that I want.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And do you do animals as well?
I've kind of. The most recent thing I did that was kind of an animal was I was like a polar bear Yeti man.
Oh, how fitting for the Chilly Mountain.
Perfect.
I love that. Very cool. Nice. So you're a very well-rounded person, very, very talented, obviously, as we could see. So each one of these things, did you know you wanted to just go all out and do everything? We haven't touched on your cosplaying, which is also fantastic. Or did you kind of just pick things up along the way and then figure it out? Or what was that process like?
it's like, you know how that you see those kids that are like, I want to do that. Like, I don't think I ever grew out of it. I would see like the voice acting stuff, and I'm like, I want to do that. And there, like, I often had times I didn't think I could, but I still wanted to. And then for each of those things, there was always a moment at some point where I stopped thinking that I couldn't do it, because I never stopped wanting to do it, and I was finally just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I've realized you don't always have to be good at something to enjoy doing it per se either. Like, even if just messing around and voice acting stuff, for a long time I thought I was terrible, but I still had a hell of a good time doing the voices and just messing around. And a really interesting mindset I've had to teach myself, like when it comes to dancing, because I always thought I was a terrible dancer, but when you're at a club and everyone else is drunk, you're always better than anybody else. But it was the mentality of like, even if you think you're really bad at something, if you're confident and enjoy it, chances are most people aren't going to think the same.
Yeah.
We have a viewer question here from White Wolf. Are there any vocal exercises that you do before you go into a voice or a persona, or are you trained professionally?
Nope. All self-taught.
Wow. That's so impressive.
I have Spotify soundtracks for characters. Whenever I get into one, if it's a character that is harsher, if it's a character that is friendly, if it's a character that is cute, I'll have like the music playing in the background. If I'm trying to be soft, like sometimes I'll literally just put the Steven Universe soundtrack on, and then it kind of gets me into a softer mindset where I can be a little more gentle. Like giving yourself a soundtrack, even if no one else ever hears it. I'll also sometimes look up dialogues from movies that I really like for moments. Like Lord of the Rings, Aragorn's speech is sometimes, if I have to like be intense or powerful or fierce, I'm like, you know what? I'm getting into it. The whole okay, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So
that's awesome.
You're really involved in the Dungeons and Dragons world, and something you really focus on is bringing in new people to Dungeons and Dragons. I wanted to ask you, what was your, kind of flipping it, what was your first D&D experience like?
It's terrible. It's horrible. It's so bad.
I did not expect that.
Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. I'd never played before. Played for the first time in college with a group of friends. And group of friends in the sense that like we were all freshmen and we were also all weird. So it was like, we're friends now. And I played a dragon sorcerer. Well, no, I was an elf sorcerer that was like a dragon focused for the magic, and it was using 3.5. And I didn't really know any of the rules, so I was learning. And then I remember there was like, somehow I got stuck in a well, and they're like, well, if you don't get out, you're gonna die. And I'm like, this is so eventually, like, I was like, can I just not do this? Like, fine. So I got out of the well, and then like a couple more sessions passed, and I got to a level where like the dragon sorcerer got scales, so it made them harder to hit, right? So the party decided to name my character Scaly Word for a Phallus. And I'm like, this sucks. So I was like, you know what? I know what I'm gonna do. So the next time we got together, we were a party of 4. Two of the characters went off, and I was stuck with one of them. One who made the name at first, and my character had the ability to like freeze people. So I froze their legs and dropped them in the well I got stuck in.
Yes,
amazing.
Met up with another member of the party. Convinced them to go with me to a house. And then I tied them up and burned the house down. Oh my God. Sorcerers had a really high charisma, so I convinced someone that like the house was like on fire and someone inside needed help. And I like made sure that there was grease in it, so it was a grease fire. And if you put water on grease fires, it's really bad.
Oh my God.
And then the third person was playing a cleric named Innocent. I remember the name to this day.
Oh my God, I know.
I didn't get Innocent, but Cross the Burned was never the same. because it was like, this is not fun. These people are not fun. Everything is so harsh and stuck up. And then eventually, like, I think 2-3 years later, I was like, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons again, but I'm going to try to run it in a way that I would have wished was run at that point. And it was with a bunch of people that had never played together, so we were all learning together and seeing how everyone was having fun learning together. I was like, this is what I wanted. This is what I wish I had, and that's why I like playing with new people so much. Because like even if the first experience is over the top and you don't necessarily have that same experience the second or third time you play it, if you had a great first experience, then you know that it's possible, and that makes it so much easier to like it's like, I know we can have that much fun even if we do it our way. It doesn't have to be all about just the rules and the mechanics and the focus. Those are in the book for us to use, but it's our game. We play it our way. We have fun our way. And that's why I love playing with new people, because if I want them to, like, if they want to use all the rules because they know it, they're more than welcome to. But if they don't know any of the rules, I'm not the DM that is playing against you. I'm the one that's telling the story with you. Yeah.
And we definitely felt welcomed when we did the Roll20 and Heroes of the Storm one-shot campaign. Good. It was unbelievable. So yeah, thank you for doing that again. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we're so strange. Perfect.
That does make sense now, though. Like, you were so scarred from your first experience. You're like, no one will ever feel that pain, or like whatever.
Yeah, because it's like all that time that I spent thinking that game was just miserable. I'm like, sometimes I feel like I missed out a little bit, but then I'm like, you know what? With what I'm doing now, I definitely didn't mass out.
Yeah. So, if there are viewers who are new D&D players and they don't have an experienced GM they know, or they're kind of wondering, like, how can I take my first step to getting into D&D? Would you have anything you would say to a person like that?
Make the mechanics and the rules come second. Figure out the story you want to tell, because you can always add more details to it. You can always add more roles. You can add more skill checks. You can change the numbers. But that stuff is all guidelines and a template. They even say in the rules, like in the early pages of like the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook, these are guides and optional rules for you to use. It's not saying anything has to be set in stone. So figure out the story that you want to tell. And then as you're figuring out the mechanics, that it will come together. It'll be like, oh, well, I want to dive underwater and see how far I can get while holding my breath. And you're like, you know what? Maybe Constitution, because you're like trying to hold your breath like that. That makes more sense, right? Yeah, let's do that. Let's make a Constitution roll.
Like, it's just more of a conversation than like a strict, like putting the rules in place.
Because when you have that conversation, you're also going to get very creative role play. If someone's like, okay, I want to knock this thing off their head, but I'd want to use performance because I want to dance and then act like it's part of the dance itself. And it's like, you know what? Hell yeah, roll a performance. It's interesting rather than just like dexterity because you
just slap it off his head.
Dexterous. Yeah. Exactly.
And I would say too, just based on our experience together, using the Roll20 tool, like just was like changed the game for me, because when we had done our own little group Roll20 experience, we like printed out the sheet. We had all like the numbers. I had like a calculator, and it was like a whole thing. I was like that lady in the meme that's doing like all the math.
It was like,
and I was like, it was like a lot, and it kind of like broke the like what is it, like the inertia or whatever of the team that everyone's like going in like in it. So using that, I think, I don't know why we just like didn't use it, but I think that really helped a lot too.
It makes a huge difference having the character manager it'll do the math for you when you select like the species you're playing, the class you're playing. It puts all the abilities in. Like when does the work for you, especially in this digital age. Even if like you're rolling physical dice or something, having that math done right is sometimes one of the best things for me. And like, so I love to roll my physical dice. I still also love clicking the dice roller on Roll20 because then I know the math's always going to be done right. And there are going to be times when I'm literally just like, I don't have it in me today. I don't want to. I don't want to figure out what 17 plus 7 is. Right now, I can say, "Yep, it's 24." But I would absolutely love the computer to do the work for me.
Yeah, and it helps everybody like stay like in that mindset instead of just like having that like little downtime where you're like, "Wait, let me figure this out," and then like having to like jump back into it, which is something that like I myself felt a lot during my first experience, and I'm like just like, oh, I'm ruining it and like, you know, whatever. So this experience with you leading it was a lot better.
I think I want to do more like introductory D&D stuff with Roll20 because I have the talk show on Fridays. At some point I'm probably just going to sit and go through like how do you make a D&D character on Roll20? And like there's going to be dozens of people that don't need it, but there is probably going to be plenty of people that do. And if that helps those people, it makes a difference. Before I started working at Roll20, I had, kid you not, 1,200 hours in it. I've been using Roll20 since 2014. So they were like, well, yeah, let's see how many. Oh, okay. Yes, you do know how the system works. I'm like, I do.
You might know a little some. So you touched on this. You are the host of Roll20's podcast, Tabletop Tabletalk.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that's perfect in relation to like the new GMs and DMs and storytellers. I like a year ago, I was like, I want to make a show called Tabletop Tabletalk where I give people advice and help them become more GMs. And then I was like, crap, I don't have time to do this. So then I like pitched the show to Roll20 and they're like, yeah, we love it. You use Roll20 anyways. You can show how that's a storytelling tool and how you can use your own storytelling tools. I'm like, yes. So literally like, every Friday or every other Friday, what I do is I sit down and do a bunch of different things. One thing I do is I literally just sit and talk design or world building. There was one Friday where I was like, you know what? We're going to use this generator. We're going to make a map. And then I'm going to put a PNG of the map on Twitter so you can all have access to it. And then we're just going to build our own world. So we all I picked a section of the map, posted a link to that on Twitter. And then when I was sitting and streaming and talking to the people in the chat, we were all making our own individual like locations for what that was. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this a place that has like a demonic creature underground. And then someone else was like, they made it an area where vampires were living. And then someone else made it an area where it was covered in black darkness and there was a draconic anglerfish. And it was so cool seeing like how everyone can take the same base area and come up with something completely different. I love that. And so another day I like was like, oh, there's this cool new like 5th edition kind of module thing. I want to talk to someone about it. So I got the person who made it and sat down and we just talked about their module. There was like D&D with more of like a Mass Effect or Star Wars vibe to it. And I'm like, it's exciting for me because it's very talk show in the sense that I'm having a conversation with like the crowd or with a person that I'm hosting with. But I don't have a script. And sometimes that works against me because it's like 2 hours long. And I remember the first couple of times I'm like, oh my God, 2 hours is really, really long. But the next couple of times I'm like, okay, I have a flow. So I would sit and talk with these people and like I would have a little bit of a general basis of what I wanted to do, but I didn't like look at what the stuff was ahead of time too much. I would look at it to make sure like, okay, this is something that's not going to be terrible. But it's been awesome because people can see my genuine excitement from like, oh my God, that's how this thing works. Or like when I look at a new game, I'll look at the game rules with the people that I'm streaming with and talking to, or like just the crowd or the chat. And then they might know something that I don't, or like I might know something that they don't. And I like the interactivity because then it feels like I'm spending time with people at like a panel or something rather than just streaming out and being like, hey, I'm reading through a game book. Watch me read through a game book.
More interaction. That's better.
Exactly. So that's
Yeah.
it's been great, and I've had people like tweet at me or message me saying that like they felt like it made them a better storyteller or like motivated to run their game.
Oh, that's so
It-
awesome.
It made me a little more emotional than I'm proud to admit.
That's great.
God damn.
So we're a little bit, as you can tell, of D&D noobs. So is there a progression where more advanced players can play like a certain campaign or a certain type of D&D, or like how does that work?
So there's a bunch of like modules or or like campaigns that exist. D&D has like module books, like Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is their most recent module that's out. It's like 200-300 pages. It gives you an entire map area. There's a whole bunch of quests, creatures, extra lore and stuff inside of there. And sometimes playing through a module can be one of the best things for new players, because modules we usually plan for characters from like level something to something, and oftentimes it'll be like level 1 to 5 or level 1 to 9 or 1 to 15. So it'll actually like give the DM a progression to follow.
Okay.
That's something else that I also definitely say for like new players is do one shots, like how we did just the one session.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like necessarily combat, I'll say running encounters, and an encounter could be fighting a troll, or an encounter could be getting a key back from a mouse that is immortal. Like you can't kill the mouse, so how do you get the key back? Like they have to be clever and creative. And that stuff, it can start and end whenever you want it to. Like we had the one shot with the Chili crew, and that could have gone for however much longer. We could have gone to a different city, we could have gone to a different village, but we got to a point that felt like this is the cool point where like what happens next? It's like the first chapter of a book. And the last thing is, don't especially if you're the DM and you're running for a group, even if you're a new DM or an experienced one, don't make everything that's a failure bad. A failure could just mean that something didn't work. So like they try to pick a lock and fail, so they can't get in the door. So now they're trying to think of how else do we get in?
Not
Failing,
the door's gone forever or something.
exactly. Failing in games can be so much fun, especially if you make it interesting. Like maybe they fail to resist a magic item and it just turns them into a talking pig, and they're in a talking pig for an hour. But like feed into it. Be like, you know what? Since you're a pig, your sense of smell is actually kind of stronger.
That's so funny. And flip it on them, kind of.
Exactly. So if you're a newcomer, like things are going to go wrong and it's not going to go right. But at the end of the day, if you're all there to have fun, the way you have fun, no one else gets to decide how you have fun. That's
And I heard you on a podcast earlier this week. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but you're speaking about Arcadia.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Please tell us about that, because that sounded really hype, but it was really in the weeds to where I was like, I need to know about this, but I'm not sure what they're saying.
Got it. No, that's fair. So yes, I was talking on a show with Matt Colville, who has been in the tabletop and D&D community for. He's a big name. That's a common name that has made so many things. And I got to work on the first issue of Arcadia. And Arcadia is a digital like tabletop D&D magazine. And I got to write a custom subclass. Someone else wrote mounted creature rules. Someone else wrote a custom mini adventure with new creatures. Someone else wrote a couple boss creatures. And it's been very cool because there's a bunch of issues that are planned and already in the works. And what it is like a monthly thing. It's basically like people get their subscription for the month through like Patreon, or they can just purchase it separately, and then they get to look through this magazine for new ideas and inspirations. And it's that kind of thing where if someone's kind of trying to figure out what to do next, they have that new, like, what's going to be the new thing in Arcadia this month that I can throw at my players or use or like read through. And the reception of it has been like astounding. I got someone tweeting at me earlier today saying, I can't wait to play the Titan Heart Sorcerer, Gabe. That's awesome. And I'm like, terrifying that you like my stuff, but I'm glad you do. And so with all of the D&D classes, at a certain level, they get a subclass, and that's to make them a little bit different. So like sorcerers have a shadow magic subclass. They have a phoenix subclass. And it feels good, smart ass man. Feels good.
I saw that. I was like, I don't know if I could ask that question.
I was gonna own it. And then I wrote one that was like called the Titan Heart, because oftentimes sorcerers don't get a whole bunch of melee. The way that they're built in the base, it wasn't so much like that. So I was like, I want that. So I started writing a subclass that was a sorcerer that could make themselves large size and then make themselves huge size. And when this happens, they can actually do melee damage. They get spells that when they're in this titanic form, they're even more powerful. It's spells that can only be used in the titanic form. And it was really cool because people were excited about being able to have a melee sorcerer. They were excited about like having NPCs that had this magic. They were like, okay, this creature was blessed by this titanic figure. What was the figure? And I wanted to make something that had fun mechanical value, but also was interesting narrative. Because sometimes, especially to me, narrative wins to mechanical 9 times out of 10.
That makes sense.
So if you can give me a way that they both come together dope as hell, I'm all for it.
The melee sorcerer sounds awesome. I feel like that's way underappreciated.
Yeah. And there's like a melee wizard, but there wasn't really a melee sorcerer. So I'm like, well, that's changing.
Awesome.
So tabletop games have seen a massive resurgence in the recent years. Where do you see the industry going in the next like 3 years or so? It is a question I've been thinking of for the last year as I find myself more involved in stuff. Yeah.
I really think there's definitely going to be a surge again with new people playing, people that didn't play before. I'm hoping to see more indie designers, or at least indie designers that even if their game isn't huge, their game is out there. There's going to be more live shows, as weird as a concept as that is, but like, if you know of Critical Role, if you know of the Adventure Zone, if you know of like even High Rollers, which is plays in the UK, and you see how live shows happen, like people are like going through these adventures in panels and broadcasting them for people.
Yeah.
I definitely seeing that becoming a bigger thing, especially at conventions. Like if someone, even if it's not necessarily a high profile crew per se, if it's a very interesting sounding game, if like, come see the one shot about the Curse of the Forgotten Twin, which is like, I mean, you know what? I probably will pop my head in because what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot more live performances of it. We're going to see so much more accessibility and play generally. Like, so Roll20 right now is in beta, a mobile app for using Roll20 to play games. And as that gets out there and as that's more accessible, like you're going to have studios of people that have tablets that just have like the Roll20 games on their tablet playing inside of studios and hosting them. We see a bunch of East Coast studios, like before everything in the pandemic stuff happened. Yeah. There were so many West Coast studios that literally had in-studio games where they had a whole studio area, the camera set up, the players with all of their stuff, and they were playing in an actual studio. I think we're going to see that happen more on the East Coast, partially because of like cost of living on the East Coast. I literally I joked about it 6 months ago, saying I wanted to make an East Coast tabletop group and have an in-house studio. And I was talking to people a couple months ago, and like my plan is to have a studio space for East Coast games before this year is over.
Wow,
that is awesome.
I have someone who's going to offer to be like my production person. And the nicest thing is like you can build sets. There are people like New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. That tri-state area has so much entertainment stuff in it.
Yeah.
But if the cost of living is going to be cheaper to rent a studio space like that than over in the West Coast, there's no. I feel like the only reason we don't see more of it is because people just haven't done it yet. People see West Coast and decide that is where it has to be.
Yeah.
And I decided I don't want to be broke, so that's not going to be the case.
And you don't want to do 9 p.m. PST shows.
I really not. I do not.
A nice 1 o'clock podcast is better.
Yes.
Sleep in a little, have some breakfast. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's going to be a huge surge, and it's going to be more accessibility of playing the games. More games are going to be visually everywhere. D&D has gone back to the mainstream. There's a writer from John Wick working on the D&D movie.
Oh,
wow, I didn't know that.
That's too sweet. Yeah,
I follow too many. No, I don't. But it's one of those wild things, and it's like it's really strange that if you go to it, and like I've talked to Matt about it. Like if you go to a convention, there will be Critical Role cosplayers, almost assuredly. It's a D&D tabletop show.
Yeah.
But like if you go to Comic-Con and you'll see Spider-Man, you'll see Thor, and you'll see Critical Role cosplayers, and Critical Role even has a Dark Horse comic. There's an Adventure Zone board game, which they started as a D&D podcast.
I do love Adventure Zone. The podcast is great.
It's wicked. So like as this stuff is more mainstream, I think more people are realizing, you know what, this is for all of us, which is it's one of the best things I say that come out of the surge of tabletop. Because now so many more people are playing, or like even if they're just trying it. I could rant about this for hours.
I'm just so intrigued. I'm like, yeah, cool. So we know you're immersed in the D&D space. What else do you like to play on the side? Are you like secretly like Radiant and Valorant, or are you like, I don't know, what else are you like involved in that you enjoy?
I'm a big Apex player.
Yes,
I love Apex Legends.
I'm like an FPS like player at heart. So anytime I'm talking to anyone, I'm just like, oh, just give me a little FPS. Like I'll take it.
When they did the duos with like on the train in the winter, oh my god, I loved it so much. I'm a big Apex player. I've been playing Valorant a little bit. God, what have I been playing?
How do you feel about the Kings Canyon map? I have to get your take on this.
I like it.
You like it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Why? How do you feel?
I'm not a fan.
Really? Why?
I started Apex in season like 4 or 5 when they had the new map out, World's Edge. So I just loved it. I loved World's Edge, and then they started switching like back to Kings Canyon, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. So I think I just came in at a time where it was all about World's Edge, to where now when they switch back, I'm like, And I think they're switching back again now.
Let me ask you a question. How often do you win on Kings Canyon?
Oh, okay. Next question. You know, it's all about knowing where the loot is, like the loot boxes. And I don't know the map that well, which I think is like a big disadvantage in Apex. So if you know where the loot boxes are, you can like hit those spots once you jump. And
so here's my plan. We're gonna play Apex. And
who do you main though?
I don't really main. I just like
okay.
Yeah, I like cryo. I like cryo because I like scouting and then sniping.
Okay.
I do enjoy Wraith because Wraith is obnoxious.
Wraith is so hard to deal with.
Yeah. That's what's funny to me. Like I like jumping off cliffs with my portal, and then someone thinks that I'm dead, and then I just pop back somewhere else.
That's tricky.
When we first started playing Apex, we didn't realize that other people could come in Wraith's portal.
We got destroyed
so we portaled out, and then we're like hiding in this house. I like remember it. And then all of a sudden, these guys come out and like just shoot us all up. And I'm like,
shotguns.
wait, they can use the portal too? Okay.
All right, so we're gonna play Apex. Gabe doesn't know where the loot is, but if I can carry you through that Apex round, Sid, I want you to publicly say that you like King's Canyon on Twitter.
Oh, that's such a bold statement.
Yes, it is.
Ooh. All right. I'm gonna do it. We have it live in video.
Yep.
It's gonna live
That's
forever.
why I said it.
You're doing it. She's so happy. We live in like MOBA land in Chili Mountain. It's like Heroes of the Storm, League of Legends, and Sid just like wants to play shooters all day.
I get it.
My secret plan is to eventually have like a Valorant team. Like that would be like I would be on the cloud, if we could do that. But slowly but surely. So getting back to you, what games do you stream on Twitch? On your own like Twitch channel? Is it a lot of what we talked about, or do you? It
literally varies any day of the week. It's so inconsistent. I feel bad for anyone who thinks I'm gonna play the same thing. I like the next game that I'm probably gonna stream is Arc. Because I managed to like get a few friends on an Arc server with me. And then we modded it to hell. So like we were going to stream today hunting what was called a dragon godling, but we chose not to because it killed all of our pets yesterday.
Oh no.
we like started like building a city and stuff. What else have I played on stream? There was a game. So I played a little bit of Starbound because I love the like kind of like Terraria if you know it. So it's like Terraria but more space. No Man's Sky because I love exploring space. Darkest Dungeon. I'm a big fan of roguelites because I like a little bit of variety. I like a little bit of strategy. Baldur's Gate 3, which has been fun. I did stream The Sims 4, but only because it was more of a. It really is, and sometimes I like to get them set up, and it basically turned into a just chatting stream, and the Sims were just living their life, and we were just.
We're just talking to stream, and they're going around like in the house.
Like, the house was on fire. Well, you know what? I appreciate that, Alan. I did have I had a great tea yesterday, and then just going back to that. Yeah.
Do you play World of Warcraft?
I haven't played WoW in like 3 years.
Okay.
And part of me wants to go back.
Yeah.
Part of me is so intimidated.
Really?
So I have the same relation to WoW that I have with Destiny. I loved Destiny 1, but I was so behind in getting onto Destiny 2 that I feel consistently behind because there's always something new happening.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's how they get you.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like if you're behind like so many artifact points, everyone else has more, and you can't get the loot and whatever. I feel like that's one of WoW's downfalls.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's the worst thing because like I'll know people that want to play or want to do stuff in it, and it's not even that I'm envious or jealous. It's just like it takes so long for me to get to the I'm enjoying myself moment.
In WoW.
And if it's the okay, I'm working and trying to catch up, and if that lasts too long, that's when it's hard for me to stay. And it's not even like it's the mental thought of like I would enjoy this if I was at this point, but I'm still here.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I always go to WoW and then I always leave, and it's usually because of that. Because I'm like, this is going to be so fun after I grind for 30 hours a week for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
That's how it was about ESO. Like I love the Elder Scrolls series.
A hardcore MOBA. Wow,
this is so cool. But then I started playing Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm like, this is dope, but I want the Skyrim pace, and it's really hard to have that in an online game.
Where's Elder Scrolls 6, by the way? I feel like I was like a young boy when Elder Scrolls 5 came out.
It's so there's like we've had the announcements. I'm pretty sure we're getting the land where like the Red Guards are from. So I think we're going to see more of the desert and such, maybe more Khajiit. I'll be honest, my first character was a cat person. It was a Khajiit, and it was literally just because I knew I could become a werewolf, so I wanted to be a contradiction.
Yeah. That's fun.
That's amazing. So we know you have a ton of projects in the works, and you're a very busy person. So thank you again for coming on our podcast. Would you like to shout out anything that you're working on right now, or anything in the works, or anything that you have in the pipeline?
All right. So I'm working with MCDM, Matt Colville, on a couple things that you'll see in the future outside of Arcadia, which is going to be very exciting. He's working on another big book that I've gotten to contribute some lore and stuff to. I worked on Paizo's newest book that's coming out. They announced already, Into the Mwangi Expanse. So I'm excited about people getting their hands on that. Since I started working at Roll20, I've been working with Burn Bright, which is Roll20's original tabletop. It's essentially like space exploration. And one of the biggest things I love about it is like I talked about having narrative built into the mechanics, and it's innately built like that. So there's like character goals that you can select for your character to achieve in sessions or in a campaign. And if you achieve those goals that you selected, you get like actual skill points and reward points. It's so freaking cool. So I'm building on that system, and I'm building on that world to expand it. So that's going to be awesome. I'm a little bit behind because of pandemic screwing life. But I'm also working on a goblin dating simulator game. That's been interesting. So you know, like the term visual novel.
I understand the words, but I haven't heard it before.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Dream Daddy?
I don't think so.
No.
Ooh, we'll come back to that one then. Okay. No point. So think like the Choose Your Own Adventure games.
Okay.
In a digital format. That depending on how you go the route, you can romance the character's route that you're in. You can just have like a friendly relationship. And it's making choices to get to the ideal end result that you're seeking, but the choices you make may kill you, may kill the companion, may have repercussions in other people's routes. And so that's the idea. And I wanted to make one that like had kind of the tabletop aspects of rolling and then having bonuses and fantasy. And I was like, goblins are weird and green and cute sometimes, but they could be. So I was like, I just want to make it. One of my problems, and it's a good problem to have, is a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now were posts that I made at 2 a.m. when I should have been asleep, and it was usually a joke. And I need to remember that when I put something on the internet, it means everyone can see it. So they'll like, Gabe, do this thing. And it's not even like it's peer pressure, but I'm like, well, gotta do it now.
That's how it works. Yep.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And what was the daddy thing you were talking about?
Okay, so do you know what the Game Grumps are?
Say that again?
The Game Grumps.
Game Grumps, no.
So they're a pair of YouTubers, and they have been playing games on YouTube and like posting stuff for a while, and then they started a company where they're publishing games. And there is a dad dating simulator called Dream Daddy. And there's a character named Matt who is a black guy with dreadlocks and glasses that I cosplayed a bit ago. And if you Google image search Matt, M-A-T space Sella, S-E-L-L-A space cosplay, I come up a lot.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You're like,
oh, yes, you do.
3 and 4. You're all.
These are all just pictures of you.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So that was like one of the first like, not any of the bigger cosplays, but one of like the first things that was like, you know what? I remember I literally just got out of the shower and then I got a text from someone saying, Gabe, why does this look like you? I'm like, what the hell is that? Okay. And I had the jacket and shirt in my closet. So I'm like,
Done.
Whatever, I'm gonna take a picture. And then I went to sleep. Like I mentioned, I post things in the morning and then I go to sleep. And then I woke up and everyone was like, oh my God, Gabe, you're a dad. I'm like, oh no.
Would the correct term be a daddy?
Yeah, technically yes. And the worst part is like I relate to him. Like I played the game and I'm like, oh God, maybe I am you.
That's amazing. That's a really good cosplay. All right. Well, we won't take up much more of your time, Gabe. This was so much fun to get to pick your brain. Honestly, the most entertaining person I know. Please tell us where people can find you and follow everything you're up to.
You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, and you can also find me on TikTok. If you find me on TikTok, it's all nonsense. I already found you on TikTok, Sid.
I'm famous now.
But honestly, any of those places, I post about all of the chaos that I'm doing. And like I very often, if you reach out and you're like curious, you have an idea, if I don't get to you within like a day or two, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I genuinely try to get back to people. But one of the things that I'm very proud of, but it's also a weird thing, is I've made sure to try to hold on to the perception that I do a bunch of things and I'm also still a person.
Absolutely.
As you grow in any sort of following, people will sometimes like idolize you or like see like, hey, he's just that designer guy, and like that's why I post weird stuff all the time. So they're like, oh, it's the weird cool designer guy. And I like talking to people as much as I can, or like helping people be more comfortable. Or if I can, like, if you're like, I'm stuck on this mechanic idea thing, Gabe, do you have an idea? Even if I don't have an idea, I might just link you something. Mm-hmm. I try to be available because, yeah, I'm just a weird guy in the internet who lives in the woods and makes games and dresses up and does voices.
That's awesome.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Gabe, for being here with us today. And my co-host, Chillrogg, where can we find you?
Thanks, Sid. So just at Chillrogg, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at Chillrogg. That's me.
Awesome.
Nice. And I am Sidkitten at It's Me Sidkitten on every single social that you can think of. And thank you all so much for watching our stream today. We'll be live again next Sunday with a super exciting host at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everyone. Make sure to subscribe and follow if you're enjoying the content.